Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 11 of the Snapshot. We're your hosts. My name is Brendan Patrick. I'm joined by none other than KM Best. The Snapshot is a Marvel Snap podcast focused on the competitive side of the game, and in episode 11, we'll be diving into the new season, Days of Future Past, talking about Nimrod, current Infinite meta, and our tips and tricks on how to climb the season. Let's get into it. All right, Cam, how was your week in Marvel Snap?
My week in Marvel Snap was remarkably enjoyable. Obviously the metagame is what it is right now, but I managed to pump my ranks enough that I play some humans. I'm having some fun playing against humans, and I'm really noticing the discrepancy between humans and bots in terms of how they play into certain things. And by that I mean I had a bot Juggernaut my Galactus a couple times yesterday on a pure guess, and it made me very sad. But humans are much less able to make those kind of plays with certainty, which is a very interesting concept in terms of when you start thinking about the decks that are good into the cheater robots versus the decks that are good into humans. I think the new Galactus deck is better into humans than the old one was, but worse into the cheater bots.
I had a funny situation with bots, and I don't know if I'm just creating this in my mind, but it does seem like when I was around rank 70, the distinction between bots and humans, sometimes distinct, sometimes not, right? And I think for the ones that were distinct, when I was lower rank in 70, I noticed that some of those bots would stay in longer, so I would be able to juice them for 4 cubes, rarely 8 cubes, but usually 4 cubes. And then once I got into 80s and 90s, they always freaking retreat at with the 2 cube. I never get the 4 cubes out of the bots. And they become I think they're Giga Brain cheater in 70 as well, but in the 90s, they are super Giga Brain cheater. They stopped making those dumb plays. We were just the play is so bad, just okay, that's definitely a bot.
So they're heinous.
Yeah, they make reasonable plays and they cheat. And they cheat.
Just get rid of it. I've been high ranked in other games without bots. I don't understand why this one has bots. I'm more high on the ability to play people than I ever have been, and because I'm playing more people, I'm really enjoying Marvel Snap. And the fact that I have to have this conversation is really frustrating. I feel like.
Have you seen the Google document that has the list of bots and humans?
That document has been pinned in my Discord since January.
I saw it for the first time this week, and I thought it was hilarious.
Well, you just added yourself as never using my Discord.
I just hadn't seen that document.
Huge mistake, by the way. Imagine if you'd known about this for 2 months.
Honestly, I don't know. So I think it's mostly it helps you with the ones that look like bots, but they might be humans. I don't use it on personally, just because I play on my phone. But yeah, it's definitely a great resource for people that are climbing. Because the thing about bots is I don't think that you're obligated to juice bots. And that's something you need to be doing to rank up. But I do think it's helpful for when you might mistake something as a bot and it's not, and you get wrecked because of it. I think that's where most of the fields are.
If they're going to put this crap in the game, then you owe it to yourself to abuse it to the best of your power, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right, well, let's head into the news. So we had Nimrod drop. Nimrod, we'll go over it again. It's a 5/5 and says when this is destroyed, add a copy to each other location. Now that you've had some time to play with this, KM, what do you think of this card? Where does its kind of power level land for you? Have you had some fun with it, at the very least?
It's better than I thought it was, but pretty specific. Galactus is the shell I've found for it that makes the most sense, but it introduces this weird tension because you want to be able to have the switch up game when you play with Galactus, right? You want to be able to choose to play on 4, 5, or 6. Nimrod lets you do that, but then you have the choice of what are the other cards in the deck, right? So by making yourself a Nimrod deck, you sort of make your null weaker. You're no longer playing Maximus and Lizard to pump your null, but you don't necessarily have to not be playing those cards. Basically, I feel like the deck is not figured out yet. The version I have on my channel, the version that's probably in my tier list, I feel like there's still so much room for optimization in terms of the early game. Like there are 3 ramp cards in there. Do there need to be 3 ramp cards in there? Are we good enough at winning the turn 4 Galactus games? I don't know, but I do honestly feel like there's something there. And the power of having the switch ups between turn 4, 5, and 6 Galactus to sort of get rid of the things your opponent might be doing. So you can wave and, Kang to see if they have arrow, or you can wave and then, Kang to see if they have arrow and then play a Nimrod instead and then try to Galactus later in the game. Like there are a lot of interesting things that you can do with a list.
So I want to quickly highlight the interaction here with Galactus because, it makes sense after you've seen it, but I think initially it's maybe a bit unintuitive. So when you do Galactus with Nimrod, it creates the 2 copies, usually in the Galactus lane because it will destroy it once and then it'll transfer over and destroy it again twice. Just want to mention that in case people hadn't seen that interaction quite yet. But yeah, I want to talk about some of these upcoming Series 5 cards this week. So first off, we have Kitty Pryde. So 1/0, and it says you can return this to your hand, gain +2 power.
Hold on. When you say upcoming Series 5 cards this week, you should be clear. Kitty Pryde's not coming out till like the 28th.
Yeah, so this is just upcoming this month. I don't know if I said this week. If I did, I definitely misspoke. But yeah, Kitty Pryde, the 1/0 says you can return this to your hand and gain +2 power, gain +2 power. I think that this is, from the consensus I've seen, this is the one that people are the most excited about. What are your thoughts?
She's the one I'm the most excited about. Sorry. Definitely very excited to play with Kitty Pryde. Definitely kind of annoyed that I have to wait so long to get her. She is the one of the cards that is coming out that I think is the coolest. Her obvious applications with Angela and Bishop are something that really gets me going in terms of where I want to brew. Yeah, she's super dope. Big fan.
Yep. And then there's Negasonic Teenage Warhead 3/2. After any card is played here, destroy this card and that card. Do you see this slotting into any current decks that you're playing with?
I don't, but I'm really looking forward to figure out all the ways in which I'm wrong about that.
Okay. And then last one, we have Master Mold 2/2. On reveal, add 2 Sentinels to your opponent's hand. Thoughts?
I feel like this card is ass, but at least it gives me some ability to try to play like Ronin, or maybe it's like the kind of card that can prevent your opponent from drawing cards. I don't know. I play Sentinel in a lot of decks. I probably rate Sentinel a lot higher than a lot of other people.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are a lot of decks that aren't going to be that mad when this happens to them. And that might just be me. But I'm a little iffy.
It's pretty interesting, right? Like this isn't necessarily the same effect, but Black Widow putting that additional card in your hand that clogs up a board state and doesn't let you draw. It's different because it just doesn't let you draw via the Widow's Bite being in the hand, and it's a 0/0 that you have to play. They're playing legit bodies with these Master Bolts, these 2 Sentinels, they're 2/3s. So it's something. These Sentinels they add the Sentinel back to hand, right? They have the Sentinel ability, so they're effectively kind of locked on these Sentinels in hand, right?
Yeah, I get what it's doing in terms of hand clog. I just don't know how many decks are going to be unable to work around that restriction.
Yeah, because if you just play your other cards, you have these 2 sort of redundant cards in hand. I don't know. It's interesting, right? You go Master Mold on 2, maybe Maximus on 3. And therefore, you're potentially playing the Maximus without the downside if your opponent didn't have a 1-drop. I think it's interesting. There's more to it than I think initially meets the eye, where it's I see this card, it's 2/2, add 2 Sentinels to your hand. I'm this card sucks.
There's definitely stuff to it. I just I find it hard to believe. Like I said, I'm a guy who actually likes Sentinels, right? I'm a big fan of Sentinel as a card. I a lot of the time I'll be yeah, that's dope. I'm not drawing the card that's in my deck, but I guess specifically against a combo deck that isn't playing cards early. So specifically against, I don't know, a Galactus deck like the Nimrod deck that is looking to just do a couple things late in the game and win the game off that. That's where it's good because you prevent them from drawing cards.
and they don't have as many
Like there's
spots
there are
on the
going to be
board.
some situations where it's an absolute checkmate. I just don't know if that's going to happen a lot.
Yep. Well, with Galactus as well, they don't have as many spots to deploy to the board because they want to keep that lane open for Galactus. I think that, yeah, I mean, this card also being a 2-drop, and like you said, if it is a checkmate to Galactus, it's kind of going to be one of those 1-cuber cards. Which is, I think, if you're getting a 1-cuber on turn 2, it's like way better than a turn 5 1-cuber. But yeah, it's a cool card for sure. I also have played Sentinels in like my legit decks that I've been ranking with in recent, I don't know if it was in the past 2 months or in the past month, but maybe Sentinels will become one of those things where it's like we look at it in a few months and it's like that was like boomer Marvel Snap Power, and like modern Marvel Snap Power Sentinels are just not good enough or something like that.
I mean, that's possible, but it keeps seeing play in like just the most decent Sarah decks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's always an in-play option for your 2-drop slot, even if it's a pretty mediocre card on its face.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into the bend and snap section. This is a listener question section. This question is from Arsenal_2. He says, "Love the content. Have a question. I've been playing for 2 months now. Last month I hit rank 140, and this month I hit infinite in 2 days. I'm loving the game and feel I get better every day. But how do I continue to play and not get my MMR so high that I get nowhere and I face all bots?"
Well, you gotta this is the brutal truth. You gotta pump. You gotta lose some games.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you will be stuck in the vicious cycle, and you will continue going upwards with nowhere elsewhere to go. You gotta bring your MMR more in line with the other people around you.
Yeah,
and that sucks.
They also said their collection's level 2700. Is there any like at the rate in which you get stuck in that bot elo, right? Is it related to collection level at all? Like once you're out of pool 3, so I feel like collection level 2700,
at about 600 is where it's related.
Okay, yeah. I think that with the advent of battle mode, like you don't have like grinding ladder is now your only way to interact with the game. Battle mode is a bit harder because obviously you need like another person, and like that's a whole logistical thing and way harder than just clicking queue up, but it is there, right? And we've seen you do this a lot, KM, where on your streams a lot you are playing battle mode games because of the current issues with the matchmaking system. So I'm happy that's there and it's an option. But yeah, unfortunately, that's the current state of the matchmaking system. That being said, we have heard a lot of rumors and talk about them changing that system. They put a Band-Aid on it, which we'll get into in the main topic, which is, it's okay. It's kind of weird. But ultimately, I think that, yeah, they understand that's a problem. I think they're getting universally negative feedback, especially from the players in the Infinite ranks, but even players not in Infinite. Like, I was going to leave this for the main topic, but I think that the idea that there's a system where the ranks reset and some players get Infinite, like only play bots to Infinite, and then some players don't. Like it doesn't feel fair at all. And what's the problem is
not.
Yeah, the problem is it sucks on both ends. And like some players feel cheated and they feel like it's unfair, right? Because they have a harder time. And then other players are like, I can't enjoy this game because I just play bots, and they're at like this level of pattern recognition where they can either beat them every time or the bots cheat. And that sucks. Like when the bots understand,
it's not like I guess the thing I would say is the frustrating bit about losing to bots is when you lose in a way that can only happen because they're clairvoyant, right? Mm-hmm. I had a game yesterday where I had a 10 power, or like it was an 8 power Nimrod because we'd gone Shuri with Scorpion, right? We had an 8 power Nimrod, a Wolverine on the board, and a Destroyer, right? So I played the Destroyer in the left lane, knowing that I would put 8 power in the other 2 lanes, yeah? Because there's an 8 power Nimrod in the left lane. And the bot played 9 power in the mid lane and 11 power in the right lane. And it's like, and knowing that, I knew immediately that Wolverine was not going to go to either of those lanes. Because if the Wolverine was going to go to those lanes and add his 4 power to the 8 power that was in that was going to go in there because of the Nimrod, the bot would simply not have played only 9 power or only 11 power in that lane. And what do you know? Wolverine went left. I lost the game because the bot knew that it was winning a 66%er. Sorry, it was a 33%er for them.
Yeah,
Wolverine going either of the other places But I knew, and this is the part that sucks, is the knowledge after you see their play of what the RNG outcome is before it happens, because otherwise they wouldn't have made that play.
Another example is like, let's say it's turn 5, you developed a lockjaw into a lane, you put 3 stones in that lane on turn 5, per se, or maybe it's just 2 additional stones. The bot has 9 power there. You're currently a 3 power. The bot doesn't commit any cards to that on turn 5. Well, they just know that your stones are going to go grab like a 1-drop or other stones. They know that they're not going to need more power there. And it's just really tilting because like they know the randomness of the lockjaw and they will play around it. It's like the same thing if you have anything that tweaks locations as well, like a Scarlet Witch or a
Oh my god, dude. I had the worst fucking thing of all time happen to me today. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Oh, this is one of the most heinous bot plays I've ever seen. And I know this is how it works because we tested this with Kang. And how the RNG, you know how the RNG seed works, right? Like you can play something if you have priority to change RNG outcomes. Mm-hmm. So I chucked a Nimrod into Danger Room on the like, okay, let's see if we can kill it off, right? A bot played a rock there and the rock died so that my Nimrod wouldn't. Because the bot knew that the RNG seed was such that the next card play there was going to die. And so they played the rock there to make it so my guy didn't die.
Oh my god. That's probably
heinous.
Most egregious.
That is one of the most, like, I wouldn't have noticed that before I did the research on the RNG seed stuff, but that is absolutely what happened. And it's not like it did it intentionally. It's not like it's smart enough to do that. What it did was it looked at the end state of the plays and it realized that I had less power on the board in the permutations where it played the rock there. And so it just did that. Yeah. It didn't know why. It just looked at the end state. It was like, that's what they can do. They have Captain Marvel vision. They look at the end state of the board and they make the play that results in the worst outcome for me. And if that means, abusing the RNG seat of Danger Room, God damn it, they'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we've talked. I mean, I think we've talked about it a lot. And
that one was so. I don't even know what the word for that is. That was deflating.
It's a scam, right? It's a big old scam. Like so sometimes I will speak out loud when I'm playing Marvel Snap. I think my girlfriend has heard me call this game a scam more times than not because I get juiced by some bot and I'm just like, what the hell was that?
Yeah. Dude, I had another one where the other thing that I've noticed with the bots is you can't ever catch them off guard with Galactus.
Yeah, of course.
They'll always play. No, like they'll always play into the lane you Galactus. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, that's really bad because, normally you'd be able to like try and do your mind games or whatever, leave a couple different lanes open, make it so you didn't do that, juice your null or whatever with the power of their 5-drop. You can actually literally never do that. If they are a bot, there is no mind game whatsoever. There is nothing. They always play their like devil dinosaur into your Galactus lane every single time. Yeah. It's such an annoying thing to have to think about. I really, really like. I have so many just like heinous bot stories, but I think at this point everyone's heard the best of them. Brutal. Get rid of that crap, please.
I lost an AQ.
And meanwhile, there's like 2 dudes that I play that I would rather play. No offense to either of them, not going to name any names, but I'd rather play these dudes in terms of cube equity than a bot any day of my life. Like, dude, because at least when I play these dudes, I can play Galactus and it's not the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I can play Galactus and it's fun.
It does suck though. Like there are some decks that are particularly worse for spots, and Galactus is definitely one of them. I lost an 8-cuber yesterday while I was in the car, and it definitely tilted me off the face of the earth. Where like there was basically no way I had lost. I dodged the Shang-Chi and everything, but it was fucking absorbing, man. Killmonger and like just like wiped my board and like I felt so scammed. I was like, oh my god. And I had priority, so they took like the 50-50 and like there wasn't even indication I was playing something that could be Shang-Chi, and they'd already missed a Shang-Chi and it was like a freaking absorbing, man. I was just like, what the hell, bro?
Oh yeah. No, I had a bot bots do this a lot again with Galactus. Is like if they have Hobgoblin, they'll Hobgoblin your Galactus, obviously. But like it doesn't even feel like if human did that to me, I'd be like, oh wow, nice read, nice play. But when a bot does it to you, it's just like, well, this fucking sucks. You just knew that was there. Fuck off.
Awesome. Well, if you wanna get your question read out on the pod, shoot us a comment on YouTube, and we'll get it in the Bend and Snap section. All right, Cam, let's head on to the main topic, which is Days of Future Past, or something I've called Days of Future Leech. I just want to talk a little bit about the matchmaking.
Wow, you're really pushing the fucking boundaries with that one. Whoa, Days of Future Leech. Oh, wow. Can we get a round of applause? This man is so brave. He doesn't like Leech.
I actually love Leech. No, I mean Leech is okay. Like I don't mind playing a Leech, to be honest. Like I know that the general sentiment around Leech is pretty bad. I think
no. I just like I feel like, you know, not enough people are saying they don't like Leech right now, and I.
That sounds facetious. Let's talk about the matchmaking changes that did happen though. The +5 ranks. What are your thoughts about that? Do you think that it was like a good change, and like did it impact? Yeah.
It was good. So one of the things I've been kicking around recently, and this might bear more exploration, is that people's complaints with matchmaking aren't so much complaints with matchmaking as they are complaints with card acquisition. They're not necessarily saying, you know, like, you know, this fucking sucks. I mean, I know people are just saying this fucking sucks on the merits, because it is not fun to have a deck like Thanos running around and sort of invalidating everything you do, and a deck like Shuri running around and invalidating everything you do. But I think it's more that, like, the kind of stuff you need to actually combat this is sort of esoteric and weird. And it's much easier to just play the good deck, yeah? And so you're in this situation where, like, these people who are, like, collection level 600, 700, 800, 900 run into some guy with Thanos, and, you know, they don't even have the tools to compete.
Yeah.
And so people like talking about it as a matchmaking issue. I don't know if it's a matchmaking issue, honestly. Or if it is a matchmaking issue, it's intimately tied to the issue of card acquisition. I think people would be less mad if they had the tools to play Thanos themselves, which is not to say this metagame would be perfect if everyone had the ability to play the best deck, but I think it would be a lot more reasonable, because if everyone had the ability to play the best deck, it would also be a lot easier to metagame against it. It'd be a lot easier to make a call and say, I'm going to play something that only beats Thanos and Shuri. But if you're like collection level 900, you can't do that, because you're not going to play against it all the time. You're just going to play against it enough for it to fucking annoy you.
Yeah. The Thanos Lockjaw deck in particular does feel kind of hard to deal with, because
I think Specimen's control deck does a great job of doing it. I think there are a couple Darkhawk decks that do a good job gumming up the works that can beat, like, I don't know, some range of output from the Thanos deck, which is to say, like, if the Thanos deck does, you know, Quinjet into Lockjaw, you're dead anyway. But if they do most other things, you're probably fine.
Yeah. The Darkhawk, you talked about this before too, like a potential way to combat Thanos is shuffling stones in the deck, right? So I mean that goes hand in hand with Darkhawk.
Right, like you could definitely do things, right? It's not like the deck is unbeatable. You're a little cold to Leech in a lot of cases, where this is sort of what this is the main Leech issue. I think a lot of people are like, Leech sucks and don't really understand why. Leech sucks because it takes away things that should be good counterplay to Thanos. That's why Leech sucks.
1000%
Leech
agree
sucks
with you. Yeah.
because if Leech didn't exist, Thanos would be one of the most beatable decks to ever live. It would be such an easy to deal with deck. And because Leech exists, it just fundamentally is not. Because there is always the fear of, you know, they're just going to turn off my entire hand of Shang-Chi Killmonger. You are unable to rely on the tools that you should be able to rely on to beat a deck like this.
Yeah, so a guest that we had recently on, I saw a sort of a Twitter thread with Ridiculous Hat, and they were talking about this Sarah Tech deck, which was actually, it's really, really good.
It's a good deck.
It's a good deck, but fuck, if you get Leech, dude, it can't do anything.
Yeah.
Like that's
you're cold to Leech, and you are trying to gum up the works before they get the wheels running and get the Leech going.
Yeah, I think that I 100% agree with you. Like, that's the complaint about Leech, and that's the issue with, like, if you could call it an issue, that's the issue with Leech, is it just like turns off so many of these decks, like some of these interactive strategies that you're like, okay, I've gone level 2 on the metagame, I'm going to try to beat this deck. It's like, yeah, unfortunately, this one card in that deck just turns off your, like, all of your ability to interact. Right. I think also
there's not a hard enough counter outside of maybe the specimen location control deck, which is so specialized, right? You're playing like debris and goblins and things like that. And so you lose to like a deck that plays Carnage or like a deck that plays Beast. And like that's the other thing, right? If there was enough of that deck around to force people off of the current build of Thanos, I think they'd end up playing, you know, the old Stones version of Thanos with Carnage and Beast, much less vulnerable to this lockjaw crap or this anti-lockjaw crap. So I'm a little like, I guess what I feel is people don't have the tools to combat Thanos or to play it. And if they did either of those things, the metagame would be able to be a lot clearer right now, and people would be able to try to work to counteract Leech in a more real scenario. But instead, we're in this halfway no man's land where someone in collection level 900 gets queued into me, and that's ridiculous.
How much of Leech's current, you know, the community animosity to the card do you think is due to it somewhat being unfun to play against? Like, it's not fun to get leeched, right? It just kind of sucks. Do you think that
I think that's a lot of it. I think that's a lot of it. But people, I think, and I will say, I am sorry for interrupting you there. There's probably going to be more of that than a normal episode because I stayed up way too late last night reading. Sometimes that happens to me. I'll get absorbed in a book and I will just absolutely destroy myself. So my inhibitions are at an all-time low right now. So I'm going to be a fairly mediocre conversation partner. It is entirely possible, and my apologies for that. And also my apologies to anyone who listens and ends up being like, oh, this fucking guy. Because you're right. But I would say that the major issues with Leech, I mean, yeah, it's not fun, but from a metagame perspective, the issue is it makes Thanos roughly uncounterable, right? Not necessarily literally uncounterable, but something in the range of it. Right? And yeah, I think it's unfun because you're moving, like, especially for people, for the process of people, right? A lot of the decks in the game, as you move through Series 3, you unlock these linchpins for decks, and a lot of them revolve around new ways to put out different amounts of power on turn 6, right? And to have a card that just turns all that stuff off is a bit like saying, haha, your shit doesn't matter because I paid money. And I think people feel that.
I think there's a sort of ubiquitous dislike for situation card games where you can't play your cards. While Leech doesn't necessarily do that, it doesn't prevent you from playing your cards. It does turn them off, right? It turns off all the abilities and like that. It's kind of the same thing. So yeah, I think that across most card games I've played, like whether it's Magic when you get mana screwed or whether it's some other game where someone prisons you out, like it never feels good, and Leech is somewhat similar to that. I want to recount a situation though where we had Leader, right? And Leader was kind of a problem card for a while, but then it wasn't, and it got nerfed when it wasn't. It got nerfed when it was like the free to play savior, right? It was what the free to play players could kind of use to combat the current meta, and then it got nerfed. I wonder if Leech is in somewhat of a similar scenario. Not that it's the free to play savior, that it just gets such a bad rap right now because of how it slots into the Thanos deck that maybe Leech will get targeted when the problem is potentially something like Thanos.
Well, I mean, the problem is definitely something like Thanos. And I do think Leech, I think it's weird that people focus on Leech, but it's also correct that people focus on Leech because Leech is the reason the Thanos deck is the impregnable wall that it is. So it's honestly, I think, a demonstration of the sophistication of the Marvel Snap community on some level, that they have correctly identified why the Thanos deck is broken, right? I don't think it's easy to pick Leech up as that. I think it's easy to say, you know, Quinjet or Lockjaw, right? But Leech is the reason why it's hard to deal with the deck. You know, obviously the higher rolls with Quinjet or Lockjaw are the strongest plays you can make. But in the context of your matchups, Leech is why they're as good as they are. And so I think that's actually pretty interesting that the community seems to have arrived on that. Like, they're not complaining about getting lockjawed to death. They're like, you know, that's fine. That's, you know, that's kind of whatever. But they are complaining about the Leech turning off their cards, and I think maybe on some level that's because they understand that if that wasn't happening, they'd be able to actually beat this deck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Going back to sort of the top topic, which we talked about already, but I think, yeah, with the matchmaking system, the biggest change I want to see from them is just a more uniform experience across the player base when it comes to ranking up. Like when it comes to ranks and rank rewards and like what a rank means to a person, whether that's validated or not, I think that, you know, like it should be a similar experience for all players. And I think that a lot of people get frustrated because I've seen this in our YouTube comments. I've seen this on Twitter. Like people get frustrated that they feel like their experience is harder than other players. And while that might not always be the case, and it can sometimes be a cop out, the fact that it exists at all is like, you should fix that system, right? Like we should fix that matchmaking system, I think, first and foremost. And the best way to do that is to fix like the bot scenario at the higher ranks. And like if you do that, I think it will have the sort of roll-off effect of, you know, maybe post-infinite, like we talked about with Jerry, like post-infinite, maybe take away all the bots, or maybe at least just increase the matchmaking parameters slightly. Because the reason we get a lot of bots, of course, because the MMR, but there is like a certain amount of time that you can actually wait for a game. And like, that's sometimes what leads to bots, right? It's just like, you just can't find a player within this like small time parameter in which you're going to try to find another player. Yeah. Cam, I want to talk about the top meta decks. We talked about Thanos Lockjaw a lot, right? And I think that this is the deck. There was a Marvel Snap Zone tournament recently. I think within the past 2 days of us recording this on Sunday. The top 4 decks were Thanos Lockjaw. So
that is unsurprising to me.
Yeah, it's a great deck. Like I think it is the deck. It is the deck to beat. And I think that the key card of what makes it hard to counter, like we talked about, is the Leech. Like the decks that would counter it, even decks like Shuri, like they have a hard time against Leech, you know, because your Taskmaster gets Leech and like your turn 6 just loses a lot of equity. After that, there is just Thano decks without Leech. There's more controlling Thanos decks. I'm gonna see if I have a list for this. I pulled one up. This is kind of close to it. I mean, this is also Thanos Lockjaw. Here's one. It's like Kang, no Lockjaw. You can have a more controlling version. Maybe you can add Kang. Maybe you can add some other drops. I've seen some Daredevils and stuff like that. It's an option. I think that the power ceiling on Lockjaw is just so freaking high that it's worth the somewhat randomness of the deck. For what it's worth. So yeah, it's hard to find a compelling reason to not play Lockjaw in the Thanos list. Do you agree, Cam?
I mean, the compelling reason would be that you're running into a lot of things that are aimed at specifically Lockjaw. Board Clog, for example.
Yeah, so
I would think that is the compelling reason to cut Lockjaw. If you have to cut it, that will be why.
And next up we have Shuri. I actually think the Shuri deck is like extremely powerful right now, especially with Cosmo. The way they're able to like, you know, split push the lanes, they develop the Cosmo, they play the Shuri, then they play the Red Skull on the Cosmo lane. It makes it so that the opposing player can't arrow your Taskmaster, and they're dealing with a 30 power Taskmaster unless you have priority and they take like a 50-50 on which one to Shang-Chi, or maybe it's clear because of the locations. Because of that, I think the Shuri deck actually has like a pretty linear line to like just absolutely overpower most games. So it's like just not a lot that the other player can do about it sometimes. Like you literally, like you play a Cosmo in one lane, you play a Shuri in the other, you drop the Red Skull in the Cosmo lane, they just can't do shit. Like the arrow doesn't do anything. Yep. The arrow is going to pull the 30 power Taskmaster, and like there's nothing they can do. Because of that, if you have access to this deck, I think it's actually a really consistent deck for climbing with. That being said, you know, your opposing Thanos player leeches you just leave those games. That's what happens. That's the world we live in. You get leeched, whatever. It's just unlikely you're going to win that. And then last up I want to talk about is the Sarah Tech deck. Sarah Control.
I like it a lot.
I love it. I love this deck. I think if we see Leech hit, this is the deck I'm looking at. I'm looking at these Sarah decks. I'm looking at Galactus decks, stuff like that. I really like this deck. But again, we talk about Shuri getting hit by Leech. I feel like this deck gets hit worse. I feel like this deck hits much worse. So
it gets like you lose the Leech games, but you should be able, at this point, you're benefiting from surprise. You have a much better idea of what the Thanos player is doing than they have an idea of what you're doing, right? You're going to lose 1 or 2 cubes sometimes, and you're going to try to win 8. That's basically how it'll go.
Yeah. And then, Cam, do you want to talk about sort of the current state of Galactus? Do you feel like that deck is close to... Is it a tier 1 deck? Is it close to being a tier 1 deck? If we see nerfs, are you looking at Galactus as maybe your pickup deck?
I love Galactus. It's so fun. I don't know what that says about me. Probably nothing good. I think there is a decent chance it ends up being a little stronger than they want it to be. If they end up nerfing cards like Arrow, Leech, those are the cards that are good against Galactus currently. It's kind of always going to be waiting in the wings there. If we're just waiting for everyone to forget about it to show up and just absolutely farm, because there are a bunch of situations that are just absolutely decks that just absolutely cannot ever beat it.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we had a tweet from Glenn Jones, which I sent over to you, Cam. Said Thanos and Shuri are too dominant. Patch later this month has significant changes in quote unquote targeting both decks. Cam, what do you see as the potential nerfs and changes that could be coming? Do you think that it's Shuri and Thanos specifically, or are we targeting support cards that are in those lists? And what do you think they might be?
I would think it's targeting support cards, but I cannot be sure.
Yeah. Let's say Thanos and Shuri get a significant reduction in power level, whatever way that is. What's the first deck or the first two decks you're picking up and you're going to try to start competing with?
That would be Sarah and Galactus.
Mm-hmm. All right.
I love Sarah. I'd try to play Sarah regardless. I am the biggest sucker for that card in the entire world. I think a dark horse would be some sort of Moon Girl combo deck with She-Hulk, although I do wonder if, losing Shuri would be kind of bad there. But like some sort of like the deck that Switchforce Zach played in the Danger Room tournament, where you have like this Quinjet and Zabu thing that lets you get big discounts on like a bunch of cheap cards at the top end, I think is a pretty reasonable way to go about it.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, I mean, that kind of wraps up most of our main topic, our talking points. Cam, what are your sort of, like, what are you planning to do for the rest of the season? What are your goals? Like, what are you focusing on? How are you going to fill out sort of the next few weeks?
I'm going to be focusing on trying to keep my MMR in a range where I play human beings.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to play 100% human beings. That's fine, whatever. But I'm going to be focusing less on clickbaiting with a rank number and more on I want to be able to make good content.
Mm-hmm. Are you looking to participate in any tournaments?
I don't know. I'll see how it goes. I think I need to figure out a way to improve first, and when I feel better about it, I will reasonably do that, I think.
Do you think that is there a sort of significant difference between the kind of decks you would bring to a battle mode tournament versus what you would ladder with? And if so, what are they?
Not necessarily significant. Kang is an example of a card that gets a lot better in battle mode than it is on ladder, I would think.
Mm. Do you play Kang in the Thanos Lockjaw decks?
No.
Yeah. I saw, I think it was Den's list was the Thanos Lockjaw with Kang. And I remember I Shang-Chi'd my opponent in my Lockjaw lane because they put a big power character there. And it pulled my Kang, restarted the turn, and I was like, God dang it. And they had Space Stone, so they just moved the moved the guy. So I was
do be like this.
Yeah. I do think that I'm still really enjoying Kang. Like, I don't think it's lost into the Lockjaw deck in particular, the Thanos Lockjaw deck, but I do really like Kang. The one thing about Kang that is interesting to me is, like, let's say you Kang on turn 5. Oh, yeah, on turn 6, sorry. A lot of times on ladder, you're going to be able to get a cube because, especially if you're in the higher ranks, people are really timid with staying in, and they will fold to boomer snaps way more than you think. It's like very, very common, and you get to free roll that. But Cam, I want to ask you about this situation, right? You play Kang, you snap your opponent, whether it's legit or not legit. They play their turn, you rewind the turn. So now they're presented with the scenario, right? Where you know exactly what they have. And if you stay in the game, it's because they have to assume that you can beat them. So is it always better for them to change their play? Like, have you been in, like, I think back to this, like, game theory example where there's, like, this door and, like, there's a donkey
You're thinking
behind
of the Monty Hall problem.
Exactly. Like, are you presenting that problem to your opponent where it's just, like, it's objectively correct for them to now just, like, completely swap their play, whether it's just swapping the lane or just, like, I don't know. Like, is Kang, like, somewhat minus EV to the person playing it?
I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
I don't think he's as much of a lock as people think, but I think a lot of the time, like, what? Are they going to not show you the strongest thing that you can do? Like,
Yeah.
or the strongest thing that they can do? Like, especially, they're like, he's better the more narrow the range of things you're looking for is, right? If you're a Galactus deck and you're like, all right, do I lose to Arrow here? Kang is amazing. He's way better when your range of things you're looking for is narrow. Yeah? And that is, it's not nothing. It's kind of a cool little thing. It's when the range of things that you lose to is higher, he gets worse.
Yeah.
I think that's like a reasonable way to look at him.
Yeah, what I find a lot is like if I have Kang in my hand and I have a powerful turn 6 play, I could play Kang and be like, okay, do they have the niche card that somewhat beats me here? But if I do that, and let's say they had like a 5 or 10%er to beat me because I had a very powerful turn 6, I play the Kang, I see their info. It's very unlikely they will usually leave, right? So I don't keep that like 90% that I would have won and actually gotten the extra cubes. Now I just get the 1 because I wanted to see if they had like the 5%er or 10%er to beat me. So Kang is like this really interesting card in Marvel Snap. I think that the equation gets skewed because you do juice so many cubes of people just folding to you because they get scared. Like turn 6, like maybe they've snapped early in the game and you just boom, you're in them for 8 cubes and they're like, I can't take this risk. I'm out. It happens a lot, but I'm interested to see where that card kind of goes in the game. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one for sure.
Awesome.
As far as good, I honestly do still think the jury is still out. He's good. Like he's the better. The more specific the thing you're looking for is, the better he gets.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, Cam, any sort of last words before we head into the outro here?
I am extremely grateful for all the support we've received. I think it's important to emphasize how my gratitude at times like these. I wanted to thank Jerry Thompson and Ridiculous Hat for coming on. I wanted to thank our listeners for sticking with us. What was it that we were the number one trend on? I thought about this and I have a really funny observation. Oh, I don't know about really funny.
Yeah, so it's we were the number one SEO on YouTube for Marvel Snap podcast, which is it's a funny equation because it's very dynamic. It updates a lot, but the fact that we were even close to, at some point, which is like, it's somewhat related to upload time versus like search time. It's pretty incredible for where we started and how far we've come.
I am like incredibly grateful for that. I know it's like a small little thing, but it's super incredible.
Yeah, and really appreciate the guests. It was awesome having both Ridiculous Hat and Jerry Thompson on. Both of them are friends of yours, but they were players that I had admired from afar for years, to be honest. Like I listened to Ridiculous Hat on Hearthstone podcast for literal years before this, and Jerry Thompson was a player that I had watched from afar compete in Magic tournaments for a long time. So it's been a great opportunity being able to talk to them. And I echo your sentiment that I really appreciate everybody that's listened, everybody that interacts with us, gives us good questions every week. All the reviews we've gotten. It's been amazing.
Yeah. I'm just grateful that, especially in this time of I guess you'd say Leech sapping people's enthusiasm, that people are still enthusiastic about the thing that we do. Yeah. And don't think I'll forget it.
Yeah. I feel like it's funny because Marvel Snap I feel like we've gotten from meta to meta. We've been in like the Zabu meta, the leader meta, the Leech meta. And one thing that's really great about Marvel Snap so far is that they do address those things at somewhat of a quick cadence. So while we sometimes get into like, like these pseudo Eldrazi winters of Marvel Snap, we come out of them pretty quick. It gets fresh and we're back sort of on the grind with new decks, new cards every month. So much to work with.
I cannot wait to play Kitty Pride. Holy shit. I cannot wait to play Kitty. Like, I cannot tell you how much that card is made for me. Even if it's bad, it is something I would love to do. Well, I do sort of worry, like, is Sandman going to be good? I actually think Sandman's really good now. Yeah, not necessarily really good, but like Sandman is a deck that I have very solidly in tier 2. It's just very boring. Yeah,
I'm the exact same way with Kang, where it's like that card might be average on ladder, but I'm gonna still play it because I just love rewinding that freaking turn.
Yeah, I'm surprised you're not a Sandman gamer, come to think of it.
Maybe eventually, like if it creeps up to tier 1, no reason why not. I mean, I had been playing the Sandman. I think it was back in the leader meta. I had played Den's list that was Sandman Electro. and honestly had a lot of success with it. I'm pretty sure I hit infinite with that list that season.
It does seem like it'd be your kind of thing, you know?
I love how like every card that just denies the opponent, it's like that's going to be on my list.
That you did that to yourself. You branded yourself this way. You're like, yeah, I'm the guy who likes asymmetric fun.
Yeah, fine.
And then you get mad when people are like, damn, Brendan, you must like this card that fucking sucks.
Awesome. Well, we do have a review this week. This is from Aspire_FGC. They say, I've been a listener since episode 2, and this has become part of my weekly podcast lineup. It's very informative, and both hosts are great. Listeners should take advantage of KM's Discord and its wealth of information full of great people willing to help you get better. Keep up the great cast. And for anybody listening, we do have KM's Discord listed in the description below, so definitely check that out.
Wait, we do? Damn.
Yeah,
that's
sure.
Cool. Good for you.
Great resource.
Thank you.
If you want to get your review read out on the podcast, you can go to ratethispodcast.com/snapshot. Helps us out immensely. There's a video version of this podcast on YouTube at youtube.com/@the_snapshot. Hit that like and subscribe while you're there. Almost at 1K. I'm on Twitter at BrendanAPG. Cam's at KMBestMS. Cam, what's your stream schedule this week?
Monday through Saturday.
Hell yeah.
I took a day off in the middle of the week. I think I took off Thursday because I woke up and I was just like, yo, I do not want to play this metagame. I woke up and I was just like, I got no idea what I want to do. And I was like, yeah, I'm just going to take a day off there. But that's pretty rare. My day off is Sundays, and that's like a day off sort of in name only, where I have, what I do is I write for Marvel Snap Zone, and I do this podcast.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for listening, and we will see you next week.
Later.